Hello, y'all. How are you all doing? I know it's been if you're listening to this week, it's been a rather intense week in the world, hey? So just checking in to see how you're all doing. I'm not doing video today because I'm just feeling the need to be more internal, so it'll just be my voice today. So, I've been thinking about what I want to dive into today is we all have this fundamental need to feel as if we are seen, heard, and understood. It makes us feel there's not a person that I haven't come across that doesn't have this kind of need because it makes us feel like, I exist, I matter, I belong, you see me, you hear me, you understand me, you get me. Ultimately, what it does is it creates connection. And it's not in any way egotistical. Like it's a really just fundamental need of I exist and you see that I exist. So, what I want to speak to today is what is it like when you don't feel seen, heard, understood? What does it feel like even when you're really not seen for who you are? And when things are projected onto you? And you are being, in a way, not seen for who you are or being misunderstood or whatever it is. And the one thing that actually is one of the most important things to say and do and to focus your lens on so that that is the perspective that you're seeing things through. So I'm going to reveal that in just a moment. Let's dive in. This is Corinne Bloom, and you're listening to Raw Conversations. So, of course, we care about what other people think, right? And that's to varying degrees. Someone that really cares all the time. What do they think about me? Do they like me? Am I accepted by them? Do they approve of me? Do they think I'm beautiful or attractive or smart or intelligent or talented? Or, when we are measuring our worth by somebody else's opinion of who we are, that's caring a little bit too much, right? Because we've left ourselves, we've abandoned ourselves in that moment, and we've handed over not only our power, but our sense of self and validation and wholeness and all of this. It's all dependent on someone or something outside of us, which is hugely disempowering, right? So the work around that would be to come back to yourself and to not only seek your own approval, but feel it within yourself. You don't need anybody else's approval. And of course, that stems from our childhood. And did our parents approve? Did they love us? Did they support us? Did they believe in us? That's where all the inner work and the belief work and the healing needs to take place and happen. But I'm not going to go into that today. The other side of that is not caring what other people think of you. And that doesn't mean that makes you cold and emotionless or numb or whatever, like an uncaring person. Like I said, fundamentally, we care because we want to feel seen, heard, and understood. And we also are empathic by nature. Caring too much obviously doesn't help us. And I'm not saying go to the point of I don't give a shit what you think about me. And then the hard armor comes up and that kind of force comes through that is like, I don't care, but actually deep down you do care. What I'm speaking to is being in such a sovereign place within yourself where you have found home within yourself. You trust yourself, you choose yourself, you're there for yourself, you believe in yourself, you accept all of yourself, your tenderness, your vulnerability, what you might deem as weaknesses, your flaws, your foibles, your wounds, your scars, all of it. You accept all of it and go, yeah, this is who I am. And I'm ever evolving and growing and expanding. That all the things that I've experienced up until this point have made me who I am. And why would I want to erase that? Right? And why would I want to judge that? Because there's nothing wrong. There's nothing wrong with me. There's nothing wrong with my experiences. We can always choose to do things differently. evolve and grow and choose how we want to respond to something rather than the knee-jerk reaction to. If you've been following me, I speak a lot about this throughout the podcast, right? But when we come into that place of sovereignty, where you know yourself enough and you accept yourself enough that when someone does not see you, when they project their stuff onto you, we respond by saying, you know what, let them be wrong about me. This is the perception. This is the saying that I think ultimately liberates us. Let them be wrong about you. If they want to judge, if they want to project, if they want to say, this is who you are, through their lens, of course, and through most likely their own judgment, of course it might trigger you. Of course it might go, hey, but that's not who I am. You've falsely interpreted who I am or my character or my motivation. And if you're someone like me where authenticity is super important and I value showing up authentically, I value showing up transparently and honestly and authentically, when someone projects something onto you and it's not in alignment with who you feel yourself to be, and of course you've got to check yourself, right? How am I showing up? But if you know that you're doing to the best of your ability, showing up with integrity, authenticity, honesty, your motivations, people are going to project. They're going to be wrong about you. Let them, right? People will have their reactions. They will have their beliefs about you. They will have their perceptions of you. And perception is different than knowledge. Perception is subjective. It's not objective. It's not necessarily based on a truth. It's based on a reaction. It's based on a feeling or thought or, view of something or someone that can easily be changed. So perceptions aren't absolutes. We can turn them into absolutes because of our belief systems. And what I mean by that is if we perceive a certain person in a certain way and we go, they are that, and we're not willing to see, A, that might be false, B, that person might change, C, we could be projecting. There's all of these variables that go in. But people can make perceptions into absolutes. And often what that is called judgment, right? Judgment is very defined. It's very stubborn. It doesn't like change. It doesn't like necessarily forgiveness or letting go or perceiving things beyond one's own belief systems, right? So perception can be a tricky one. We have to really hold ourselves accountable of what is my perception, and is that colored by my own belief system? Is it colored by my own triggers, my wounds, my defenses, the humanity that I've experienced up until this point? And of course, the key to unveiling all of that is to be as kind and generous and patient with ourselves so that we're not judging ourselves in the process. And one thing to just throw in is that, the degree to which people judge you is the degree to which they judge themselves, right? But I want to come back to this, let them be wrong about you, because I find it, especially as I grow older, when I was younger, I think I felt this, but it feels unjust or it feels unfair, but that's not who I am, you're projecting onto me, but that's not really who I am. You're not seeing me. And, I want to just acknowledge for those of you that have been in partnerships with narcissists, this is a tricky one. It's a really tricky one because they will constantly project on you. It will constantly be you're the issue, you're the problem, you're the fault. And there's very little accountability or self-responsibility or self-reflection on their part, right? And everything, the universe revolves around them. And it's very hard for them to just be able to literally turn their inner head, I'm going to say, around to see themselves, to reflect upon themselves with any kind of awareness. It's really, really hard for them. And so this, I'm just bringing up narcissism. I know it's such a kind of like, I don't know, a tricky word right now because it gets thrown around so much, but it, I want to bring it into the conversation because firstly, I've had the experience myself. And secondly, because this whole let them be wrong about you becomes ever more important with someone that has narcissistic traits because they will be wrong about you a lot because there's a lot of judgment that underlies and is the undercurrent of much of what they say. And there's various types of narcissists. So, of course, there can be overt or covert. There's many, many different subtypes, you could say. And so the way they behave, sometimes it's very subtle. Sometimes it's manipulative, but in a very, very like sneaky way. Sometimes it's just downright, outright, very abusive. And, it's almost in a way easier to notice and recognize a narcissist that's very it's blatantly obvious, to everyone around. It's harder when it's a little bit more subtle and when they're highly functioning, as it would be, technically called. But anyway, this is not an episode about narcissists, but I'm bringing it into the conversation because any of you that have been in relationship to a narcissist, whether that was a partner or a parent or a sibling or whatever, you can really care about what they think or how they perceive you because you're constantly being put on that kind of in that spotlight of you're the problem, you're what's wrong. And it will make you question yourself. It will make you question if what they say is true, or did I say that right, or did I do that right, or is there something wrong with me, or did I make the right decision, or there's this second guessing of who we are and what we said and what we did. And that's part of the manipulation, and that's part of the illusion, that's part of the cycle and the pattern, unfortunately, of those dynamics. So coming to this place of let them be wrong about you is liberating, because what it's saying is like, okay, it's still my job to take self-responsibility, to be self-aware, to do the inner work, not because you're a project and you're broken and you need to be fixed, but because it's like we all have healing to do. Or sometimes even that word becomes such a cliche. We all deserve to be tended to and cared for and loved by ourselves, for ourselves, that we are the giver and the receiver of that love, of that validation, of that support, of that trust, of that, like, I've got you and I'm here for you and I choose you. Right. So that we're, of course, it's lovely to be chosen by someone else. It's lovely to be loved and seen and supported by someone else, but that it's not the go to in order to fill the void. Wholeness is there. We just have to remember it. And then actually, once the wholeness is there, we can allow ourselves to receive more the love that we're really, truly wanting, not as a filler, but as an enhancer. In a world of social media where everything is online and like cyberbullying, because it's so easy to say shit to someone online because they don't have to suffer the consequences of how that makes that person feel, because they don't see the micro facial movements. They don't see the body language. They don't feel the energy because they're safely hidden behind the computer screen. In a world that is so highly opinionated, that can get into this polarity and duality of right and wrong and good and bad, and my opinion is more valuable than yours, or my view and perspective, or we're been put into this like terrible concoction, which is like, really placing us against each other. And there's a tactic to that, right? So in that kind of world, remaining heart-centered and being a caring, empathic person is so important, but equally having boundaries to say, I'm not going to take on that shit. I'm not going to take on your perception or your projection or your whatever you want to call it, whatever that person is placing on you. If you're honest with yourself, you might catch them say something and you're like, damn, you know what? That is true. And I do need to look at that part of myself. That's self-responsibility. That's self-accountability. That's maturity. That's being a spiritual adult. It's not going into shame and blame. And, the trigger will often come because it's like we feel hurt, and it's because we believe that part of ourselves to be true, right? If they judge you and you believe that judgment about yourself, you have that judgment about yourself, you'll take that in, you'll identify with it, and it will spiral you into an emotional response to that, because you'll feel the pain and the wounding and the scarring and the story and all of that gets triggered along with it. But if you've been doing the inner work and you're there for yourself, sometimes the judgment's like, ouch, that doesn't feel good. It doesn't feel good to have that said about me, or it doesn't feel good because it doesn't feel true, or it doesn't feel authentic, or it feels like that person is projecting and they're transferring, whatever terms you want to use. But you don't identify with it because you know what your truth is. You know where your integrity lies. Right? You understand your motivation, but you've got to first and foremost be honest with yourself, because you will not know that, and you will take shit personal and you will get triggered if you are not honest with yourself first. You have got to be so honest that you can stand in front of the mirror, both literally and figuratively, and be naked and be able to look at yourself and say, I love you still. I accept you wholeheartedly for all parts of you. That honesty with ourselves is so vitally important. It is key to all of this. Because if you're with that, like, how do I want to say it? Just unwavering, steady relationship with yourself that is founded upon kindness, gentleness, forgiveness, compassion, love, acceptance. It's like the most powerful sovereign place that you can be within yourself. Because you can take information in, you can choose how you want to filter it through. Is this informative? Is this something that I need to take in and reflect? Or is this shit not mine? And I'm not going to have a rebuttal. I'm not going to fight back. I'm not going to defend, because you don't want to throw arrows back at arrows, right? That's just creates conflict. You can drop it. You can recognize it for what it is. But from an emotional perspective, there might be a part of you that still goes, but wait a second, I was misunderstood. I wasn't seen correctly. And it's like, you have to really ask yourself, is it worth going into that if that person perceives you in that way and they're not willing to shift their perception? Because their perception is actually based on their own projection, on their own judgment of not just you, but of maybe people in that category, right? So, whatever judgment you want to place, oh, that person is too sensitive, too emotional, too much, too needy, too attached, those, all of those words that often have too much, they're all coming from judgment. And so when you get to say, you know what, let them be wrong about who you are, let them be wrong about me. You're not giving their judgment any power, because you know that it's simply not true. It's not deflecting. It's not spiritual bypassing. Again, first and foremost important step is be honest with yourself. Don't lie to yourself. Don't cheat yourself, right? If something does hit home and you're like, shit, that is true, take responsibility. Don't shame or blame yourself. Work through it, with love, with compassion, with kindness. Yeah. There is, such a beautiful power that comes when we just allow things to be there, and that is that person's view and perception. And you know what, they're going through their own struggle, their own blind spots, their own healing, because of their own pain and wounding. We don't need to take on people's stuff, but we also don't have to be mean in response to, like, yeah, they got that wrong. They got that wrong. And the ego might come in and go, ouch, I don't want to be perceived as something like this. The ego might want to take it personal. But as you've probably often heard me say, if you've been following me for a while, what if you began by not taking it personal? What if you saw, like, okay, this is a pattern of that person. They will make you wrong. They will make you the fault. They will make you the problem. And you recognize, oh, this is a pattern. So is this about me? Okay, let me just check in. Am I showing up in a way that's creating this pattern? And if the answer to that is no, let them be wrong about you. If there's a part of you that feels like you need to stand up for your truth or to put things into context, absolutely do that. But I think, part of learning skilled, mature, emotionally intelligent communication is that we don't need to defend truth. Only lies need to be defended, right? Truth is very simple and it doesn't need defending. And I think, the only time where we feel like we need to defend ourselves is if we don't fully trust and believe whatever our relationship with ourselves is, our worth, are we lovable? Are we significant? Are we valuable? If we aren't fully trusting of that within ourselves, if we don't fully believe that we are these things, that we are whole, that we are worthy, that we are lovable, that we are significant, that we're deserving of, beautiful things in our lives, connection, safety, respect, then that's where we waver, right? So there's this dance between, I'm a big believer in don't get rid of your ego. This whole like transcend and bypass your ego. The ego is a terrible, bad, evil thing. No, it's not. Your ego gives you your personality and your sense of self, which is a part of the vehicle and the vessel that is allowing for your soul to have this human experience, to have this experience in embodied form, right? So, what matters is have a healthy ego, have a healthy relationship to your ego. Understand who you are, your sense of self, both on a soul essence level, but also as your human personality. It's important. Don't get rid of it. Don't erase it. Nobody wants to go into their phone and recognize that like all of their photos are just have been erased and gone missing. Why? Because that makes up your life and that makes up who you are. Why would you want to delete and erase your ego? It is a part of who you are in human form. Have a healthy relationship with and to it. Make it a healthy ego. Don't let it be an ego that runs the show and tells you off and criticizes you and, makes you take everything personal and trigger it and be mean and be a bully. And no, love it, tend to it, take care of it, own it. But, I think it was Darius Wright that was talking about, we just think we're this ball of just like love and light. No, our soul has a personality too. It has an identity too. And this is why I tune people in, connecting into what does your essence and soul feel like? And you will know that it has a kind of signature. You will know that it has, for lack of a better term, because words are so limiting and we're moving beyond words when we go into the realm of the soul. Your soul has a personality. Your soul has a character. If you tune in, you can feel, oh, I have a really strong, powerful, fierce warrior soul, or I feel the essence is like super loving and gentle and, or playful and fun and silly, or, there's when people have had near death experiences, or people like Darius Wright that have controlled out of body experiences, when they're on the other side in their soul self, they still feel like themselves. Their consciousness comes with them. Their consciousness still has the same thoughts. They might not have the same attachment to their body or to fear or to certain beliefs because they're in that soul space, which is much more expansive and more loving and more in tune with itself because it's back in its essence and its essence form. That's hard to say. Um, so it shifts in from that perspective, but it still has a sense of self, right? So maybe this feels like I've gone off on a tangent and I've gone off topic, but all of it is to really understand when you know yourself and when you understand yourself, you can take things less personal. You can see things for who and what they are. You can recognize what's mine and what's not mine. You can recognize where that person might be coming from when they're projecting. Why is their behavior the way that it is? It gives you that 360-degree view on life. And when we can look at it from that like eagle's perch, eagle eye view, we don't take shit so personally. And when we don't take shit so personally, we can also let go of things, which is why the saying, let them be wrong about you, can be so liberating, because it's like, you know what? It doesn't matter. They can go off and they can think, oh, you're this and you're that, and you're too much this or you're not enough that. And they can tell their spouses or their partners or their parents or their friends or their whatever. Let them be wrong about you. Because if you spend your whole life and your energy worrying about what people think about you, you just show up with integrity. You show up with as much honesty and truth and transparency and authenticity and kindness, and you know the motivation for your actions. That's all you can do. It's not about being a perfect specimen. Be human, you know, but do it with intention, do it with consciousness. And the rest, you know what? It's not any of your business. It's none of your business what people think about you. It's none of your business what they project onto you. Let them be wrong. It might bruise your ego for a moment, but you know what? When you really drop into your heart and into your soul space, it doesn't matter. Have compassion for them, you know? So today is just really a reminder of, firstly, of course, cultivate that relationship with yourself so that you really do have an understanding of who you are. Get to know the various textures of who you are in human form, your personality, your ego, but most especially in your soul self, your essence. Really get to know that so that then you can ground yourself in this stability of having such a solid foundation and relationship with and to yourself, that you know that you choose yourself. You know that you're never going to abandon, reject, judge, ignore, neglect yourself and all parts of yourself, the inner child, your dreams, your aspirations, your soul, your humanity, your scars, your wounds, your gifts, your joys, all of it. And then, show up in the most authentic way that you possibly can for yourself. Be a kind person to the best of your ability, and let the rest just be. And maybe they'll come around and one day they'll really see you, and maybe they'll never see you. And I often find it's harder for people to truly see what is there as it is rather than through what they believe that thing to be, if they cannot see themselves with that same clear lens. Our beliefs, our projections, our perceptions they color the lens through which we see through, right? Our beliefs, all of that is like wearing colored glasses. What we can do at best is to get that glass as clear as possible so that we can simply see things as they are as much as possible. We're always going to see it through our own personal lens. That is going to shift the color ever so slightly in our own way because we're seeing it through our eyes, right? And it's impossible to see it truly, 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 neutrally and objectively. Maybe God's eyes sees that, right? Because Source sees all things without judgment. Let them be wrong. Like, just bring that in as like, can I do that? Can I let that person be wrong about who I am? Can I let them just have, their opinion of me? And again, like I said, unless you feel like you really need to speak up for yourself because that feels important, or you need to put context, or you need to clarify. But if even then they still get you wrong, they still don't see you, they don't hear you, they don't understand you, it's not going to happen because they have their own block, because they're not seeing, hearing, understanding themselves. They're in the filter of judgment. They're in the filter of projection, because that's happening obviously within themselves as well. Let it be. All of these words, all of these song lyrics, right? Let it be. Let it be. Come back to love. Might sound corny, but really actually that's always the returning point, because that returning point is home. That's actually the starting point. It's what we return to and begin from all the time. And that is the cycle. We leave it, we stray a little away from home. That's okay. Come back to love, come back home, come back to the starting point again. So that's it, my friends. Just something to sit with, contemplate on, and ask yourself the question: The next time you find yourself in a situation and maybe you're a little bit triggered or maybe you're a little bit hurt or you took that a little bit personal, if there's no way of working through something with that person, let them be wrong about you. Let it go. Liberate yourself from judgment. That's it. As always, take it or leave it as feels right for you, and loving you from afar. You've been listening to Raw Conversations with Corinne Bloom. Thanks so much for showing up, listening in, and being a part of the conversation with me.